Hi everyone, talofa lava, maloa ilile, and womanjika. Welcome to season 2 of The Bent Spoon, brought to you by Thorne Harbour Health. We are here today because of our love for food and the big part it plays in our culture traditions. Food not only brings us together as a universal love language, it can also tell a story we can all relate to. So let us share with you our culture through food. My name is Miss Catalina, your host, so come on in and let's start cooking. Well, welcome Meredith to The Bent Spoon. I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
So what are you going to be cooking for us?
I'm going to be cooking a dish called mapo tofu,
Yeah.
which is a Chinese dish made with ground pork and tofu and a lot of flavor.
Food is a big part of my life and my culture. I love how it brings people together and just sharing a meal with friends and family. My parents were not particularly Chinese. It was something that was always present, but because they were born in America, it had been diluted, as it does. But there was always the food, and the food was wonderful.
So what's the first thing that
The first thing we're going to do is put some rice on, which
Okay.
we have just there.
Nice.
That's for later. We will accompany our dish with the rice. We can marinate the meat for the dish. For the marinade, we need 2 tablespoons of soy sauce.
Nice. And do you measure? Always measure,
Well-
or do you eyeball?
Because there's a recipe and I don't want to mess this up, I'm
Yeah.
measuring. But if I were cooking this at home, I would just be pouring things in until the ghosts of my ancestors said, "That's enough, child." Because that's the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, nice. What is this one you're adding?
This is cooking wine.
Cooking
or
wine.
sherry. You can use dry sherry.
Okay.
This is the Chinese stuff. We have some ginger that's been nicely pre-minced for us.
Okay. So how much ginger do you use?
1 teaspoon of this.
1 teaspoon. Okay. And you can buy it already minced.
You can
too,
buy it already
which is
minced.
great.
It's much simpler. How are you
Okay.
at chopping garlic up?
I think I'm very good at chopping minced
All right,
garlic.
well, you get to do it.
Okay, I'll just grab a knife here. Rightio. Do you want this finely
Yes,
chopped?
yes, please.
Okay. Really finely chopped?
Well, not so much that your fingers go in it too.
I hope chefs are not watching this and thinking, that's not how you chop. Is this enough?
1 more.
All right, maybe one more.
The recipe calls for 3, but I like my garlic.
Who taught you how to cook?
This is a favorite of my mother's.
Yeah.
I grew up with this, and this is one of my comfort foods.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's brilliant. It's simple, it's tasty, it's warming. My mother's not always around to cook it, so I had to learn to do it myself.
Oh, nice.
I came to Australia back in 1996 to have a look for 6 months, and 25 years later, I'm still here. I just fell in love. I landed in Melbourne, and I fell in love with the place. I ended up staying and eventually found, well, I got the good job, the wife, the kids, the car, the house, and the whole works, in a house in the suburbs and everything.
I'm from California, actually.
Yeah.
And my parents were both born in America.
Ah.
So I'm sort of 3rd generation, I think maybe even 4th generation on one side.
Uh-huh.
And I grew up feeling pretty much just like any American kid,
Yeah.
with the exception that there was Chinese stuff in my house, but it didn't feel like we were explicitly steeped in Chinese culture. It was just sort of there.
Do your parents speak?
My mom grew up speaking Chinese. I don't actually know if my dad ever spoke Chinese.
Oh, okay. You
so
never
yeah,
heard them speak.
I have never heard him speak Chinese.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And my mom, I've only ever heard her speak like at restaurants when she's ordering food. So the only words I ever learned had to do with food. Great job, great job. All right. So now we've got all the garlic, the ginger, the soy, the cooking wine. We put the pork in
Okay.
and we mix it all up. Where's my fork?
A fork, okay.
So just mix it in real good.
Yeah. And this is,
This is just a pre-marinade for the meat.
Oh,
This
okay.
is gonna go in the fridge overnight.
yeah.
And we're gonna keep the cameras rolling for 24 hours while it steeps in the fridge.
Look at my garlic.
It looks beautiful. Oh, this is gonna taste so good.
Nice. Okay.
So we cover this
Okay. We'll marinate that for how long?
a few hours at least in the fridge.
Yeah.
My gender identity has evolved, I think. Once I came to Australia, it was the first time I'd ever had a place on my own. Prior to that, I never really, even if it had occurred to me, I wouldn't have had a chance to experiment. But since I had the privacy in my own flat, I started online shopping for things. And back then it was, you could only get like racy stuff. It was the very early days of the internet. And I just experimented and explored, and eventually I ended up getting more everyday clothes, which I would just wear around the house, around the flat. And I didn't think I needed to go outside. It never really was a thing that I thought I would want to do. Obviously that changed over the years, little by little, and eventually came to the point where Meredith emerged and I gave her a name, and now she's like half my life.
Okay, well, so what's next?
What's
the
next? We
step?
have to prepare the tofu. First thing we do is boil the kettle.
Okay. Awesome.
And while that's boiling, we
Yes.
cut this up into cubes. Now, would you like me to do that or would you like to do it?
I can do it.
About 2 centimeter cubes,
This way here, like this.
however you want to cube it.
And like that, like structure like so.
Yeah, we'll cut it finer in the other direction. We'll make
This way.
We'll make oblongs instead of cubes.
Let's cut them like this. Okay.
Chop chop.
So,
Bowl. We need a bowl.
you
We need to
bowl.
put these in a bowl.
Okay. You learned how to cook through your mother?
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Just by watching her when I was growing up. I didn't really help out in the kitchen all that much.
Yeah. I should just check them
I
in here.
I do remember her making me wash vegetables and snap beans and things like that to help prepare for dinner. So I knew my way around the kitchen.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I went away to uni that I really had to learn these skills. So that's when sort of trial and error and ringing home and saying, how do I do this? And eventually I learned enough to get by.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we take our boiled water.
Okay. And this is enough?
Yeah, that's
Was this like one packet of
That's
tofu?
400 to 500 grams.
Okay.
It's probably not strictly necessary to do this with the firm tofu, but you pour boiling water over it to set the tofu so that it doesn't fall apart when you stir it in with everything else.
Oh.
So once that's done, then
And
you
how long
set,
do you leave that?
just until you need it really. We'll cook the meat and we'll come back to this. So we set that aside.
I never considered that I was transgender growing up. It was something I knew could happen, but the news reports and media things that I read were, you're going to have a shorter life expectancy, or the hormones are really problematic, or this or that. So it was something I discounted because I didn't have really strong feelings about having a female side. Not until later when, once I moved here in my mid-20s, then it started to come out. So I call myself a late bloomer. I would call myself dual gender because as Derek, I don't have a problem being Derek. I'm quite happy to be Derek, but I also want to be Meredith some of the time, half the time, or whatever. And I want both, so why not have both?
Now we are
Cook
going
the
to
mince, the pork mince.
fry up the pork mince.
Okay.
And this is the pork mince that was sitting in the fridge overnight. So can we get some fire going
Let's
here?
Get some fire going. This will take a few seconds.
We have our oil, we have our mince.
What kind of oil do you use?
I just use canola oil, vegetable oil. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Yeah, that's good. There's enough oil in the meat.
Cool. And then,
We'll just put it in.
all right, let me just grab this. Okay. All of it?
All of it.
Okay. There we go.
All right.
Let's start cooking. I do cook this till it's brown, or?
Yes, yes. Cook that till it's brown. You can tell when it's cooked because it won't have that clear kind of look to it.
This is sweating, right? And so am I.
I won't go there.
Okay. Okay, let's have a look here. Oh, that's smelling really nice.
It's the garlic and ginger, classic Chinese.
That I smell. That I smell.
Hang on.
That I chop.
Just put some of your hand in there.
Okay.
All right.
When I met my wife for the first time, we were dating. When it became clear we were going to become a thing, I opened up about the fact that I had women's clothes and I would wear them around the house. Meredith wasn't a thing back then, per se. And she was fine with Derek wearing a dress around the house. As the years went past, it became more important for me to present and go out in public eventually. And that caused a lot of what I call difficult conversations between me and my wife. And it's been a very long journey, but she is supportive and accepting. The fact that I am dual gender probably saved our marriage. My wife prefers not to interact with Meredith, so I don't bring that into our life with me as Derek and my wife. And I'm quite lucky because I have a space, a very convenient space now, to keep Meredith and change and come and go as I please. I'm very lucky. Before I had access to that space, I would have to go out in my car and change at friends' places, change in the car, and that can be problematic. But I made it work. But I don't have any real complaints now. It works quite well. The arrangement we have now works quite well.
Yeah. So Meredith, now this is ready and cooked. What's the next thing
That
we
looks
need to add?
really good. This is called, I'm probably going to say it wrong because I don't speak Chinese,
Okay.
doubanjiang.
This
Did I say that
sounds
right?
good to me.
It's a fermented Chinese bean paste with chilies, and it is delicious. And we add 2 tablespoons of this.
No. Where do you buy this from?
Any Asian grocer should have it.
Okay. Oh, that smell is like really, really
Yeah, it's
strong.
delicious. It's delicious, and it turns the dish bright red, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay. And then.
So cook that through. Maybe turn the heat up a little.
Yeah. There we go. That's turned up.
Now we need to. While that's cooking, while you just keep stirring that.
How
I
long
will-
do you have to cook this for with the bean
Oh, maybe
paste?
that's probably too hot now.
Too hot?
That's fine.
It's too hot? Too hot? for
Too
you to
hot.
handle?
Too hot. No, it's fine.
Okay.
I don't think you can really overcook it. You know, as long as you're not burning it. Now we drain the tofu.
Oh, it's getting really hot. And then after this,
This
do you
is
chuck that in straight away?
yes,
Okay.
and hopefully I won't lose any. Oh,
So really the things that we're adding,
on,
it
hang
really
on.
is just warming it up, isn't it?
pretty much. All right, we'll do this in stages.
And how much do you think this will feed a family?
This makes about four regular to small servings. I eat a lot, so like this would feed me twice maybe.
Okay. And who cooks at home? Like when you're at home, who cooks? Do you cook?
Generally, it's me.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
My wife's disabled, and
Yeah.
she can't really stand on her feet too long. I mean, she can do it if she has to, but it's just easier if I do it. So.
Yeah. Okay. Did you say you've got kids as well? Like
I do. I have
How
an
many
eight-
kids do you have?
I have 2 kids, an 18-year-old son and a
Oh, wow.
nearly 16-year-old daughter.
Wow.
And I'm just starting to teach them how to cook.
Okay.
Back in 2017, when our government decided to hold the plebiscite on same-sex marriage, the No campaign didn't have a valid argument against it, so they basically picked a scapegoat and took transgender people and threw them under the bus, saying they were going to be predators and hiding in bathrooms and corrupting the minds of the young kids. Anything to get people to vote no, basically, even though it had nothing to do with same-sex marriage. And I felt that very keenly and very personally. So I went dropping leaflets for the Yes campaign with my daughter, who was 12 years old at the time. And she was, why shouldn't people be allowed to get married if they want? So she was fully behind the Yes campaign. But it really broke my heart that I couldn't tell her why it was so important to me. And it eventually got to the point, my news feed on social media is full of social justice things, and it was just post after post about the horrible things that the No campaign was doing, and it really got me down. I had to take a break. I had a little breakdown, and I had to take some time out. And during that period, I decided that I was going to have to tell the kids. My wife wanted to wait until they were grown adults. But I think once she saw what was happening and how I felt, she agreed that I needed to tell them. So they were 15 and 12 at the time. And they took it just fine. The classic situation is, oh, is that all? All right, what's for dinner? And that was almost what it was like.
Okay, here we have 200 mils of soup stock. Stir that up a bit.
This is actually matching your dress.
Is it?
By the way, which I love, your outfit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Really beautiful.
So we have a little bit of cold water and some corn flour because we don't want it to be too soupy. And you do it with cold water first before you put it in the hot dish or it will clump.
And this is to
thicken it up just a little. We don't want it heavy thick. We just want it slightly less runny than it is. Okay, so we pour that in and you stir it up. A little bit of sesame oil.
Do we wait till this gets thickened, or do you just?
It'll thicken.
Now.
It'll thicken as we go. And if it gets too
magic.
thick, it is. Look at that. And if it thickens too much, you can just add a little more water or a little more stock. Awesome. So about a teaspoon of this.
Yeah, this is strong, isn't it?
This is quite strong. You don't need a lot. Okay.
Am I doing okay here?
You're doing beautifully. All right. Pinch of sugar.
A pinch of sugar.
Just a pinch.
And a pinch.
Okay.
This is like to balance it out.
Okay, 2 pinches. Just to balance it out a little bit. Okay, turn the heat down because we're gonna spend some time doing some heavy pounding.
Oh, what is that you've got there?
This is a mortar and pestle. Okay, so this is great. You're gonna love this. This is Sichuan pepper.
Yeah.
It is.
I can smell it from here.
Kind of it's spicy but not spicy. It's got a really.
Can I try one?
You can, and I want you to chew it up and tell me what you think. It's not peppery as in
There's too much.
pepper, but it's like,
Oh, I don't want too much. Okay.
it's fizzy. It's fizzy.
Oh.
Trust me, it works really well with chili. You don't use a whole lot. You just
There
need a
is
little
something nice about it. It
bit.
tastes
Yeah,
bitter.
okay, so we're gonna use about a teaspoon.
There's a nice floral
It's got a
aftertaste.
lemony kind of pungent, tangy. It
Yeah.
works beautifully with Chinese flavors and chili. So we are going to grind this up.
I trust. And are you going to powder this?
Well, if you don't grind it up, you're liable to get little pockets of ooh, wow,
Oh, okay.
like that. So this will distribute it through the dish a little bit more evenly.
And you just chuck it in here.
Yeah. And you don't have to grind it up. I quite like having the little bits of pungent wow. Back when I told the kids, I also decided that since the kids were pretty much the only reason I wasn't more open about Meredith being part of my life, that I came out at work. That Christmas party that year, I decided to go as Meredith. So I ended up wearing a dress and surprising a few people. And it was fine. I had a lot of friends at work who already knew because I'd worked there for many, many years and I've made good friends there. But there were people who didn't know, upper management who didn't know. And it raised a few eyebrows, but really it was fine. No issues at all. A few weeks after that, a close friend who had known about Meredith for a while approached me and said, someone from HR has asked me to ask you if you might want to send an email or something to the wider office to just kind of explain what's happening. And so I got in touch with HR and they're like, well, it's, we don't have a problem with, no one has a problem with this. We have been approached by someone who wants to make sure they don't do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. And we realized we didn't have a policy about this. So would you like to help us make a policy? I'm like, sure. So I've ended up joining some of the diversity and inclusion panels, and now I go to work as Meredith or Derek as I please.
My little profile picture, and you can put yourself, oh, I've split mine down the middle, and one side is Derek and one side is Meredith.
So we have our Sichuan pepper all ground up here.
Okay.
We'll put a little spoonful in, not too much. And while you're stirring that up, I will chop some spring onions.
Okay. Looks really great. I love the color. I love the green color that's going to go with this red. It's going to look really nice. Look at you go.
Look at me go.
Yes.
Do you like it spicy? We can add a little bit of crushed chilies.
Yeah, why not?
All right. A little bit of these.
Crushed chili. There we go. Yes, that's
All right.
looking great.
And once that's been stirred for
Yeah.
another few seconds, and it looks like we're pretty much ready to serve it.
Overall, my transgender experience, I would say, is definitely positive. There have been hard times, particularly with my relationship with my wife. But generally speaking, I have been really lucky. I've heard a lot of stories from other trans people and about other trans people where there's trauma involved and really just really nasty things and heartbreaking things. And somehow I managed to skip all that. I don't know why I'm so lucky, but I am very thankful. And I'm surrounded by loving people, and everyone accepts me for who I am. And I couldn't really ask for more.
All right.
Excited.
We've had the rice cooking. I've
Yes.
set some aside already.
What kind of rice do you use?
This is jasmine rice. Something to serve it with.
Yes, awesome. I can't wait. This is the kind of spoon I like for one person.
To eat with or to serve with?
Oh, to eat with, darling. Eat with, always.
And we'll add
Look
a
at
few more.
that.
Add a few more fresh spring onions on top.
Yes, and then it's time to taste. Right. We'll grab a spoon. Let's taste together. All our hard work.
Nom, nom, nom.
Okay, let's have a taste. Okay. Mmm. Oh, this is really yummy. This is so delicious.
I want more.
It's one
All
more.
right, we're just gonna eat dinner now.
That's really, really nice. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
That is beautiful. I just want to say thank you, Meredith, for coming by to the Bent Spoon.
Thank you for having me. I had a blast.
You're welcome. Pleasure having you.
Thanks
here.
for watching. I had a great time. I cooked one of my favorite comfort dishes. To find my recipe for mapo tofu, please head to the Thorne Harbour Health website.
Okay.
Do it on the cutting board, you
Oh,
silly
really?
person.
Got more clothes, and there's a cat. I mean, I'm happy to pet the cat if...